Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today we are going to be doing my end of the year wrap up. So I'm going to be wrapping up my reading for the year of 2024. So this is going to include my 12 books of the month, some basic reading stats, some channel highlights, and maybe I'll throw in some like random things that happened in my life as we get into this video. But let's go ahead and talk about the books to start out with. And it is going to come in at a total of 59 books read this year. That is also including 2 books that I have not technically finished yet, which are When in Truth, That Monstrosity sitting back there, and then every year on Christmas Eve I read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. So technically I've not finished those 2 yet, so technically right now I am at 57 books, but we are going to get to that 59 mark hopefully by the end of the year. If not, it'll be 58, and you know, some of these numbers will slightly change. That 59 number is also going to include the 3 graphic novels I read this year, and also a couple of the nonfiction, or I think it's 3 nonfiction books that I read this year. Maybe it's just 2, but nonfiction doesn't make up a huge piece of my reading, but I just, you know, that is what included in that number. And I'm going to be very close to my goal of 20,000 pages read this year. It's going to actually depend on When in Truth. I think if I finish When in Truth, it's going to just bump me over 20,000. So that was my goal page-wise this year, and I've already kind of blown past my goal of 45 books read this year. I keep moving that number down because I don't really care so much about how many books I read, because, you know, books like When in Truth count the same as my shortest book that I read this year, which is Letters from an Unknown Woman. So that book's like 50 pages, 45 pages, and When in Truth is 1,400, but those count as one book read. So that's kind of where I go in with the page number and get that kind of differential, ranking. So my goals are going to be very close this year, at least on the page number count, and I am pretty happy with that overall. So I will say in general, this year was a pretty good reading year. My average ranking for all of the books that I read this year was 3.41, which is above average. If you don't know, my rating scale is pretty difficult. Like, it's really hard to get a 1-star. It's really hard to get a 5-star. Most stuff is going to be in that 3 to 4-star category for me. I think that reading for me is like an adjusted bell curve, where it's not like an actual normal distribution. Things skew a little bit more positive just because I'm picking up things that I actually like want and think I'm going to like. I don't actively go out looking for things that I'm not going to like, but I don't really give out a whole lot of 5 stars on that same note. So it kind of keeps that that category making sense, or that analogy making sense. And with that being said, I did only give out 2 5-star reads this year, unless something happens in When in Truth in the back half. I'm about 50% of the way through it right now. Unless something happens there and it can catapult itself into a 5-star read, which I'll be honest, I don't think is going to happen. Like I said, I don't give out a whole lot of 5 stars, but right now that is sitting at 2. 25 4 stars, 23 stars, and 7 2 stars, which the 7 2 stars is actually probably a lot higher than in past years. I took a chance on a lot of new authors this year, and also just experimented with some of my reading and tried some stuff that I wasn't as sure about as I normally would be when it comes to my reading, and some of those things didn't work out, obviously, and so I think that bumped the 2-star number up a little bit. But you will see no 1 stars. I didn't hate anything I read this year. There were definitely some examples of things that I didn't really like, and I think the messaging of the book didn't work for me as well. I'm specifically thinking of like Roadside Picnic and Blindsight are the 2 like big ones for me that didn't really work all that well, but I didn't hate either of those. I just didn't really enjoy them, and I didn't get like the same level of hype, and I just didn't get a lot out of those books that I think a lot of other people do. I think those are 2 books I'm absolutely the minority of, because I know so many people really, really like those books. One of my goals for this year was to read a lot of different authors. So last year was my year of the Sanderson, probably with a lot of other people. You know, that's when The Secret Project came out and everything. And I read something like I read all of the Cosmere, so however many books it was at the time, like 30-something books, were all Sanderson last year. And I was also finishing up The Expanse last year, so a lot of James S.A. Corey. I think it was Sanderson with like 30-something, James S.A. Corey with like 8 different reads or something. So a lot of my reading last year was taken up by just a few authors. And so this year I can say it is definitely slightly different. Stephen King is my most read author of this year with only 5 books. And I say only 5, but like compared to last year with so many books from Sanderson, 5 King books is definitely a much lower number. And then I have 2 authors tied with 3 books with Stephen Erickson. I read the first 3 books of Malazan Book of the Fallen this year. And then I read 3 Jenny Wirtz books, being The Master of White Storm, which is a book I'm glad I get to talk about here, because it's not one that I really get to talk about, but it is one I'd like to highlight. It's a good book. I really think a lot of people should go out and read it. It's kind of a classic sword and sorcery story, but really has a good twist, and comes to be so much more than just that. But it fits into that genre. So if you're really looking for some like real classic fantasy kind of like story quest, go do thing, accomplish mission. You should go read that, and it'll blow you away. I also read The Gallant from her, and the third book in the Wars of Light and Shadow series, Warhorse's Vastmark, which was one of my top 10 reads for this year. And then I think I have a bunch of authors at 2, and then obviously I think it's probably 20-something authors that I only read one book from this year. So it was a huge accomplishment this year for me for that goal, but that is my most read authors this year, which is, like I said, such a different thing than what happened to last year. I'm not sure if I like it that much. I think going into 2025, I'm going to probably return to reading more from specific authors. And that's not because I think this year was a failure. I think my reading got affected trying to try so many new authors that I didn't really get to finish out any series. I didn't really make a whole lot of progress in a lot of series that I would like to. So I think going into 2025, a little highlight for maybe some of my plans for 2025 are going to be, finishing out some series and really putting in some work onto my already existing series. And now let's go ahead and quickly go over my book of the month for every month. I already released my top 10 books of 2024 video, so you can go and find that if you are so inclined to do. But in January, my book of the month was Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. That was a top 10 book for me. February, Cujo by Stephen King. March, All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy. And then I have to just talk about April a little bit here by itself, because this was probably my strongest reading month of the year. I had 3 top 10 books come from April alone. That would be Empire of the Damned, Return to Udan, and then my book of the month that month, which was Misery. So April was just an absolutely extraordinary month. And that is actually something I noticed this year. I think a lot of my reading was really front heavy. A lot of my favorite stuff, I think, came earlier in the year. Obviously, there's some stuff I liked in the latter half. But looking back at some of my videos and some of my ratings and, all the stuff I did to kind of prepare for this video, I really think that I know for a fact I went into a reading slump. If I look somewhere in the middle-ish of the year, my reading really slowed down for a while. I think part of that was reading some really long books that took a lot out of me, but also just trying so many different things that I never really got attached to a whole lot of it. And it did start to pick up here towards the end of the year with some stuff. But this month, I think, really highlights that April was such an amazing month, and I really thought I was going to be on the road to success for 2024 being my best reading year ever, and I don't think that's quite the case, but yeah, April, what a crazy month to have 3, and like I said, Misery was the book of the month there, but 3 total books in my top 10 coming from one month is pretty crazy. And I just noticed April was a Stephen King book, May is a Stephen King book with Salem's Lot, and then June is also a Stephen King book of the month with Pet Sematary, so 3 in a row there from King. July was The Night by Will White. August was Memories of Ice by Steven Erikson. September was Not Till We Are Lost, and this was the 5th and most recent Bobby Bookverse. And I just want to say, if this is a series you're interested in, Daniel Green did probably the best video I've ever seen on the Bobbyverse ever, and so I would recommend going and watching that. October was my favorite fantasy book of the year, The Forgetting Moon by Brian Lee Durfee. November was another Stephen King book, The Shining, and December is probably going to end up being Wind and Truth, but you never know, it might not be. The other options would be The Murder on the North Pole Express, which is a full-on Christmas book. It's not something I would read outside of the Christmas season, but it's by Patricia Meredith. I read Death of a Christmas Tree Salesman last year and had a really good time with that, so it looks like she might be kind of having a series of somewhat related to popular murder mystery stuff going on every year coming out for Christmas in her Sam Shuffle series, so that is technically in the running for here. The Mountain Crown by Karen Lewoshi is another one that would technically be in the running here, a really short novella that I really liked, and then obviously technically A Christmas Carol. I normally wouldn't count a reread, it's the only book I reread, so I'm not sure I really count that here, but probably going to be Wind and Truth, but you never know. I still have so much. I have 700 pages of that, which is a whole other book left to still read from there. So we'll see what ends up happening in December. And then I just wanted to highlight some videos that I did on the channel this year that I really liked, that I thought were fun for me, and it seemed like people liked them. So I had a Fantasy Recs for all readers. I kind of broke it up into different categories of what books I would then recommend to people. I liked talking about books that got me into reading. That was a fun one to kind of go down memory lane and talk about books that kind of formed me in my childhood reading and even into early adolescence and stuff. I really liked looking at what Goodreads books were the best and worst of what I have read and kind of comparing and contrasting like which ones did I really like versus which ones Goodreads really liked and all that kind of stuff. It was pretty fun. I actually really enjoyed my Memories of Ice video. It was kind of more of a vloggy style video. At one point I'm like off in the middle of the woods that I rode to on my motorcycle, and I'm just like in the woods talking about Memories of Ice, which I don't know, that was a really fun video that I did. I did a video with my girlfriend this year. We did that like way back on like Valentine's Day and stuff, and that was a lot of fun. We have some plans to do some videos together on the channel going into 2025. I did a video on popular books that I said aren't for me, and that was a video I really enjoyed the comments in because it was a mixture of people saying, hey, it's really cool that you know what you like, and I think if these are things that you don't like, you're right, you won't like this book. And then I also really enjoyed people being like, while yes, that's a part of certain books, there's so much else going on here, you should still give it a try. So I'm not sure if I will end up reading any of the books that are on that list, but I had a lot of fun like having conversations with people in the comments there. Also, it's going back a little bit now, but my March wrap up, which is a really random video to like think about, but that was a video I included some clips from my first strongman competition in, and so that's just like a memorable one to me because I don't really share too much like outside of like book stuff here, but obviously sharing that was kind of a cool thing to see. And then I love doing all this end of the year content. It's my favorite stuff to do. It's my favorite stuff to watch. I know some people don't like it. I'm in enough Discords lurking because I don't really like Discord. But I'm in enough Discords to like see people who talk about this kind of content and really don't like it and don't like to watch it and think it's like people selling out and all this weird random stuff. But this is my favorite stuff to watch. It's my favorite stuff to talk about. So I'm having a great time doing all this end of the year content. If there's any end of the year content that like I haven't done that you would like me to do, absolutely let me know down below in the comments because like I said, it's like my favorite stuff to do. It's fun to like do all this stuff here at the end of the year. Like, who cares if it's a dumb top 10 video, like it's fun. And then I do just want to mention all of the collabs I did this year were just awesome. I was in a couple live chats. I did one on, hopefully I don't forget any here. I didn't like go back and double check all these. I did like a whole Cosmere chat with Laura over at Fantasy Awash. Well, I guess now her channel is just her name, Laura A. Blake, because she's about to publish a book. I did that video with her. I was also on her Love Bomb chats. I did a For Whom the Bell Tolls with Brian over at BellTube. That was awesome. I did Chatting with Nuts with Jimmy. Awesome experience, super cool to do that. I did 2 videos with Joanna on her Why Read series with Vera. That was awesome with her and Joanna. I also did another one with Joanna, like I said, and that was getting to talk to Philip and a couple other booktubers on Return to Adan, which was a really cool experience to just, obviously he wrote the book, so it was cool to get to talk to him and share my thoughts and opinions. I did a video with Britton from Some Okie Dude, and I did, I think the last one I did was a Berserk video with a couple guys. We sat and talked about like from the end of the Eclipse arc in Berserk and kind of talked about everything there. That was Chance, Jake from Nerd Level Rising, Chance Dillon from Chance Dillon, Jake from Nerd Level Rising, Alex from, is it pronounced Istiscardia? I don't know how to pronounce his channel 100%. And then the Bearded Book Beast, he's actually the one who ended up hosting it because of some technical difficulties. And if I forgot one, I'm trying to remember everything. The year's a long time, but I just, it was awesome to get to do all of that. But do let me know about your reading year in 2024. Was it a good year? Was it a bad year? Favorite books, all that stuff. I'd love to know down below in the comments. But that's all for me. And remember, read what you want when you want.